Hey everybody, welcome back to Cupcake Chronicles. This time we're coming to you from Goa, India. We are fresh somewhat from our trip to Hillsboro, North Dakota, working on the beet factory, beet harvest. And this is Cupcake looking all kind of dusty after a month of hard work.
So last October we traded in the open road for the slightly less open piles of sugar beets. We work camped at the North Dakota sugar beet harvest. And today, we're going to be spilling the tea on what we earned. First, you might be wondering, what exactly is work camping? And basically, it's trading your time and labor for things like a campsite, hookups, sometimes you even get a paycheck. It's a way to explore new places and meet really cool people, but still keep your travel dreams alive without breaking the bank.
There's all kinds of work camping opportunities, from volunteering, working in a national park, to doing what we did, working beet harvest in North Dakota. We know a lot of you are curious about the beet harvest and work camping, like how did it work out financially? So today we're going to tell you. We're going to share our numbers with you, from what we earned to what we took home to what we think, still up for debate, we actually made from this process.
So you can consider this your insider's guide to work camping and beet harvest. We're going to share everything from our hourly rate to how much diesel it cost us to get to North Dakota. And then you could have a realistic idea of what it might cost you to do the same harvest.
Let's start with the good stuff. We both worked as helper sample takers, and we earned $19.36 per hour base rate. We worked 181.5 hours over roughly a month that we were there. Our monthly gross income was about $4,500 each. Plus we each got like a $200 bonus on top of that for completing the season. Our combined income was $9,494.
So that's just gross income. Keep that in mind. Taxes take quite a bit of a big bite out of it, but we're going to talk about that when we talk about expenses a little bit later. The wages for 2025 have increased just a bit. So if you want, go ahead and pause the screen and you can see the wages for the 2025 beet harvest. The hourly wage is only part of the equation. You also have to take into account the overtime that's built into each shift. The first 8 hours of every shift, we got paid regular time. And then the last 4 hours are time and a half. Saturdays, they're also time and a half. And then on Sundays, you get paid double time. Of course, the big thing is you have to actually be there for all 12 hours in order to get paid the overtime for the day. And there are quite a few days when we didn't go in until late because it was too hot during the day. So the day shift didn't work and we didn't go in at our regular time of 8 o'clock. Instead, we would be called in at midnight. So you don't get any built-in overtime on those days. So before we dive too far into expenses, let's talk a little bit more about the work schedule. We got to the Hillsboro campground on September 25th, and that was the last arrival day that you could choose. We were coming from Alaska, so we wanted to give ourselves plenty of travel time to get there. Oh, I know you could hear the crazy birds in the background. For 2025, we've asked to arrive early for the pre-pile work. We think that if we do the harvest again, we're going to try to maximize the total number of hours that we get to work. We committed to the entire month of October in 2024. We didn't end up needing to stay that long. I think they cut us loose around the 20th, but we were prepared to stay through the 31st if we needed to. The actual harvest takes between 10 and 15 days. And if you watched our last video, you saw that farmers are assigned harvesting and harvesting shifts and days just like we were. And that kind of surprised us. We thought that, the beet season just opened up and farmers just start coming in with loads of beets. But that's not actually the case. They come at specified times. So we actually kind of got to know some of the drivers on our shift. And then depending on the weather, that depends on how many days or shifts, partial shifts, you may get off. We were prepared to work straight through, but we didn't have to. It would have been hard, but we were ready. Instead, we had about 8 days, either partial or whole, completely off. So each afternoon we woke up, we called the hotline or we checked the website, and it would tell us if we were going to report at our normal time or if we had a late start. Now, if you get called off for your entire shift, you are still going to get some incentive pay. They're going to pay 4 hours that they call stay pay. And it's essentially 4 hours of pay so that you don't leave. Later in the harvest season, when there were stay pay days, we noticed that more and more campers were disappearing from the RV park. So even with that 4-hour bonus incentive, people still left.
Hey, it's a new day. New shirt. I'm wearing my Unbeetable Beets
American Crystal Sugar.
shirt that we got for free. So we don't talk about it so much, but we did get free stuff. We got some t-shirts,
Hats,
gloves, rain jackets, and a sticky finger, trigger finger for me, long term. That was free. My finger was sticking after we worked the beet harvest, so lots of free things.
That's your age. It's shining right through.
Let's talk about expenses. So for the beet harvest, like with anything else when we RV, we determine a lot of our expenses. Do we want to stay in a really nice RV park where maybe it costs a lot of money every night, or do we want to live in the desert and spend no money? In this case, some of our expenses were controlled because we were staying in an RV park that was paid for by American Crystal Sugars. We each earned about $4,700, and of the $4,700 that we earned, we each paid about $1,700 in taxes. So between us, take home money into our bank account was $6,000. So our biggest expense bucket was taxes. After taxes, our next biggest expense bucket is diesel. The cost to go to the beet harvest and the cost to come back to Portland, Oregon for us from the beet harvest. There's different ways we can look at how much it cost us for our fuel expense. We can look at the cost of what did we stick the nozzle, diesel nozzle in the tank and fill it up? What was the cost of that to get to and from the beet harvest? Or do we look at the cost of what does it cost us per mile to run the truck and the camper? So in that case, then we're looking at what is our annualized expenses on the truck camper. So repairs, gas, preventative maintenance, tires, these kinds of things. We actually track it. We have a program we use called Fuely, and we've tracked every expense we've had on the truck and diesel since 2020. So if we want, we can calculate a cost per mile with that, or we can calculate a cost per mile just using diesel. We've gone back and forth ourselves about what is the most accurate way to calculate this.
No, we haven't. I've said it from the beginning how I calculate it.
I said from the beginning how I calculate it. So we have gone back and forth about what is the most accurate way to calculate it. Because really at the end of the day, for us, it was fun to work the beet harvest and meet new people, but we went there to make money. And we want to understand, did we make money?
Last summer we were up in Alaska visiting one of our daughters and her family. So our diesel expenses included coming from Anchorage down to North Dakota and then back across to Portland, Oregon, kind of our home base. So that's like the actual diesel cost for us, but we also wanted to take a look at it a little bit differently, because if we do the harvest again in the future, then we're probably going to be coming from Portland and returning to Portland. Our diesel cost from Alaska to North Dakota and back to Portland was about $2,200. Future trips, just round trips, will probably cost us about $1,270, $1,300, somewhere around there. So it'd be a lot less expensive, obviously, to drive from our home there and back. And it would be even better if we had another job lined up along the way somewhere. So just like our expenses can vary, yours probably will too. If you drive a little car and stay in one of the hotels that American Crystal Sugar puts people in, you have a way lower expenses for just transportation to get to the harvest itself.
A big challenge for me of the sugar beet harvest was that we were working night shift. Early in my career, and my engineering career, I worked night shift. I worked night shift for years and years. Compressed shifts, so 12-hour shifts at night. So maybe compressed 12-hour nighttime working, I've done a decade. This was the first time I've ever heard of a night shift compressed where there is no differential. I mentioned this to one of the managers there and said, this is a concern to me, like what is the motivation to work night shift? Their feedback was that night shift you're going to get more hours than you will by working on day shift because we have less temperature shutdowns at night than we do during the day. So in the day when the temperature gets above whatever X temperature, I don't know what it was, 80 or something, they shut down, they stop processing. Nighttime, things are cooling back down, so in theory we would actually get more hours. I was skeptical. Someone on day shift and I, we compared hours while we were there, and our hours were almost identical. After the beet harvest though, forgiving my wife's sweat, after the beet harvest we followed up with another couple that worked day shift. They worked the pre-pile, and so they worked before the official piling season began. They worked a couple days. At the end of the season, they were let go on day shift, I want to say 2 days before we were. Not a lot. Got a hold of them after we're all home and doing our own thing again, and we compared paychecks. End of the day, Noelle and I on night shift walked away with about $800 more than the people that worked on day shift doing the exact same job earned. So there is some validity to you'll make more money working at night. We found, particularly once we committed to working night shift and we stayed on a night shift schedule, it was painful. It was really awful. Like when we didn't work at night, it was tough to get onto a night shift schedule. And then when there's no work, we were stuck inside Cupcake. Like we wandered around like the park a little bit, but it's the middle of the night. So financially, there's a slight edge to working night shift. When we talked to the Beet folks this year, we said, we'll come back, but we want to work night shift. We want to work night shift because we saw we can make more money, one, and two, we like the people. We like the foreman, we like the night shift vibe. If you work for American Crystal Sugar for like 4 or 5 years doing the beet harvest, at some point they actually hire you as an employee just for the sugar beet harvest. Those are the very last people to be let go. Those are the people who want to work on day shift. So if you're working on day shift as a temp, like we were, you're out the door before anyone that has seniority is. So it makes sense. So gravitating to night shift actually did allow us to earn a little bit more money than those people working on the day shift. Have we mentioned this is our first time to do Workamping? So a lot of the questions we have are probably pretty standard procedure understanding for people who do Workamping a lot. We don't. It's our first time. So we're trying to work our way through this. Unfortunately, some of it we're working our way through after we're done. It might have been better if we tried to figure some of this out ahead of time to make some informed decisions. One of the areas we had to talk about and figure out was groceries. Do we include our groceries in the cost of our expenses? Our thinking on groceries ended up being kind of, well, whether we're Workamping and working a beet harvest or whether we're sitting in the desert somewhere drinking margaritas, we are going to pay for our food no matter what. So to us, that's just an expense that's going to carry over consistently no matter where we're at. I don't think we found the work of the beet harvest so physically taxing that our food consumption spiked because we needed a lot of extra calories. It really wasn't the case. So we could eat the same whether we were doing the beet harvest or whether we were honestly just pushing the broom somewhere.
Here's our view. In case you're wondering why it's so loud.
Just like groceries, the same conversation can be had about laundry facilities. Like, should we include what it costs to wash and dry our clothes? How about our cell phones? Do we include that? How about Starlink? Do we include that? In all of those cases, we decided those are just our normal operating expenses day to day, and we're not going to try to recoup them out of this Workamping experience. If we try to pile all of our expenses onto a single Workamping event, we're never going to leave our house because we would always come up negative. There's expenses, I guess, tied to Workamping, and then there's expenses that are just tied to life.
Let's take a look at our first example of how we calculated our expenses. This is going to include our taxes, our diesel, work clothes, and gear that we needed. So Lisa, who was our intake specialist, I'm not sure what her title is, but she works with Express Employment, and she kind of talked us through this whole process. She was amazing, by the way. She does a great job of staying in touch. She lets you know what's coming. She lets you know what to expect. And we found that super helpful. So she told us to go to Goodwill or garage sales and get some work clothes. Whatever we want to wear, that we don't care if it gets ruined, because you're going to get dirty. So we each picked up jeans, t-shirts, work boots, and jackets. And then we each bought some work gloves. We got some hand and toe warmers. One thing Lisa suggested to us was to buy a cheap set of sheets. We went to Walmart and picked up a sheet set for like $6 or $8. And we put them over the truck seats after work so that we didn't get our truck completely greasy and muddy. And that was a really good idea. If you have an old sheet set at home or something you could use, then it's not an expense you would need to put out money for. But it was an expense for us. Altogether, I think we spent about $230 on clothing and gear. And then we included propane expenses. I'm not really sure because it's kind of the same as a living expense, like groceries or whatever, but for some reason we included it. So $33 to propane during our time at the beet harvest. As you'll see in this slide, for this example, we did not include groceries, restaurants, or entertainment. We drove to Grand Forks a couple of times on our days off. We went to the farmer's market and we went to Mexican restaurant one day for dinner. And we didn't include that because it's things that we like to do and we would be doing no matter where we are. You might decide it's important to include that kind of thing so you get a more accurate representation of how much you spend. But for us, after our taxes, diesel, work clothes, and propane, then our take-home pay, so our net income for the month, was about $2,367. That's combined for both of us. And it might not seem like a whole lot of money to you, but there's not a lot of months when we clear $2,000 doing freelance writing. So for us, that's pretty good income. That number, $2,300, included our actual trip of diesel from Alaska to North Dakota and then back to Portland. But we wanted to see how much it would cost if we were just coming a round trip from Portland and back. And with that lower diesel cost, we clear about $3,300. So that's an even bigger win and seems like it would definitely be worth doing the harvest again.
You know, we could stop there and say we made a profit and then walk away from the video. But I think
even during the edit we were talking about, should we just leave it alone?
I've shared with you before, I'm a recovering engineer.
Well, I see absolutely no evidence of the recovery, just to be transparent.
We've gone, so much around on this silly little video and what is real and what is authentic to us and our channel. We want the folks at the sugar beet harvest to be like, Steve and Noelle, they're the bomb. We also want to make sure we're giving real numbers. So that's kind of why we're going into the next section. We are jumping in to clarify how our costs are calculated.
So that's confusing as
We have two different methods. Noelle will tell you about method number one.
The simple method is our cost per mile based on diesel fuel. So we take the total cost of our fuel, we divide it by how many miles we drove, and that equals our cost per mile. And we use the actual mileage in that, the actual fuel costs for that calculation. Simple.
Method number 2.
Complicated.
Method number 2. We took the actual cost of the fuel we used on our trip to work the beet harvest, and then on top of that we included the cost of service for the truck. So we have an annualized cost. So we take all of the repairs we've done on the truck since we purchased it in 2020, sum them all up, and then we divide that by the number of miles that we've driven, total number of miles. And this gives us really a service cost. We add the service cost to the fuel cost, and that gives us an annualized rate for how much it costs per mile to drive Cupcake. That's method number 2. But perhaps more accurate.
Perhaps more accurate.
This is our challenge with Workamping. This is the first time we've done it, so we're trying to figure out what is the best way for us to calculate our own profit and loss. Now we're going to share numbers with you that we calculated.
Our first method for figuring out expenses for the beet harvest is what I like to call the simple math. In method 1, it's just about fuel. So we traveled about 5,000 miles and fuel cost about $2,200.
Method number 2, the one I kind of prefer.
Hard math.
Hard math?
Mine's simple math, yours is hard math.
Mine has been confusing to me. All right, so we're talking about annualized expenses here in method number 2. So our miles traveled are obviously the same, about 5,000 miles total. Our service cost, $2,209.27. Then fuel expenses, about $2,200. So our expense total comes out to around $4,400.
So like we said, our gross income was about $94. And if you take away our expenses, take a look on the screen we're showing, we end up with the fuel plus expenses models with a profit of $3,300 for the beet harvest. I'd say for essentially a month's worth of time, that's a pretty decent profit.
In our second model, the difference really between Model 2 and Model 1 is Model 2, we're incorporating the service cost of the truck itself. So how much does it cost us per mile to maintain the truck? That's based on calculations of what repairs we do or upgrades to the truck from 2020 through 2024. We get a sum of how much money we spent. It's around $30,000. And how many miles have we driven? Somewhere around 75,000. So we divide the cost by the number of miles, and that gives us like cost per mile for service, which in this case is around 44.5 cents.
Per mile?
Per mile. We multiply that 44.5 cents per the number of miles we drove, around 5,000, and then that gives us the service cost. So these are invisible costs to us that we don't necessarily see, like when we're driving from point A to point B, but when we look at later, you go, oh, I have to get new tires, I have to do oil changes, I have to do radiator work. They're fees that are associated with maintaining the truck. That's why we're including in this model. When we look at the bottom of this model, we can see service costs came out to $2,209.27. So that pulls our profit down from model number 1, which was fuel only. In this scenario, model number 2, our profit is about $1,100, so significantly lower than model number 1.
But where I'm coming from is that everybody that we've talked to about it calculates it just like what we just did. This is how much it cost us to get there. This is how much it cost us to get back in gas. And that's the whole story, which is a very valid way of looking at it. And it's kind of how I look at it, like that's the whole story. Because then we just start diving into the weeds. So take it away.
The weeds are where good engineers live. Noelle mentioned like the restaurants, the entertainment, and our groceries came out to about $962.
We like to eat good food. We don't get these cheeks from being cheap. It's true.
Coming into it, the information we got from Lisa was that you should plan and be ready to work 3 weeks in a row. You're going to work every day. So when you come in, she was like, be ready, have all of your food ready to go, be prepared. So we were.
And we took it probably to the extreme.
We bought heavy, and we came in with 3 weeks worth of food. We had bought some stuff at
maybe 4
Costco.
weeks.
We had bought like at the local store. And the expectation, I think, from Lisa, I understand her thinking was she didn't know where we were going to be placed, which facility. And different facilities, you may be like off in just BFE, where there's nothing around. Where we ended up being placed
in Hillsboro, North Dakota.
There was a grocery store, and there was restaurants, and there was a
Burger
Dollar
King,
General.
Yeah, Dollar General.
So we
two convenience stores, and all of it you could walk to.
Yeah, so we were able to restock just fine in town.
And there was that one lady in camp. Her husband was doing the beet harvest, but she comes with him every year. Oh my God, she makes the best food. Can't remember her name. I should look it up. But there were all kinds of opportunities for us to have meals, even if we would have came completely unprepared.
So we came in heavy with the food, with groceries, and we left heavy with food, with groceries. So
we also forgot to take into account that we would have leftovers.
Yeah. So all our way home, we didn't grocery shop at all.
Yeah.
We were still eating food that's wrapped into this number we gave you of $962. And in truth, we still have some of like the food left, staples, that we'll be eating in 2025. So the 960.
Once we get back from India.
Yeah. Stop sweating, hopefully.
Oh my God.
The 962, it's a high number. But some of it just, we had too much food.
We had way too much food. And then also, like you said, it included going to a Mexican restaurant, driving to Fargo and checking out the sites, and we drove to Grand Forks a couple of times. And
I think we were very careful on this experience about eating out.
Yeah.
Recognizing like
once we started working.
Okay, like we're working and we could eat out every day. Mm-hmm. And we did see other people that ate out a fair amount.
Well, like fast food or...
For us, it was really about like if I'm earning whatever it was, $19.36 an hour, I don't want to spend $45 to eat out.
Yeah,
like,
2 of our hours.
We're there to work and earn money and then get the heck out, not to necessarily spend a lot of our money on food, on dining
Consumables.
out. Yeah.
Let me talk a little bit about the experience beyond the money, because it was a pretty cool one. We met really neat people from all over the country. We got to see what American agriculture is all about, and that was eye-opening for us. I really enjoyed being a part of the harvest. There was a sense of camaraderie and purpose that was super rewarding. It was neat to see how agriculture works. It was neat to see how the farmers come together in a schedule with American Crystal Sugar and all the express temp workers and are making a product that Americans will use. So that part of it was super neat to be a part of, and I'm really glad for the experience. So I think we did break even, but the experience of it was pretty cool either way. Our ground crew was super fun to work with. We actually worked with a couple of different crews as the harvest went on. They start moving people around on different pilers for helping where the work is the most. So our ground crew was a lot of fun. We laughed, we got to know each other, we even tried doing some dances for little TikToks, and I think it was just all around a great experience. So that's the other side of whether or not the beet harvest was worth it.
Well, you think it's really important to have fun. We had a good time. we're not curing cancer in this job. Some people seem to think we were. This is not like a long-term gig. We are a temp worker. We got hired to work a specific project, and when that project is done, we're done. So we're never confused. So that to me was like one of the best things about this, was just the ability to just say, F it. I want to be safe. I want you to be safe. We want to do our job proficiently. But, like all the management stuff, logistics and all that, well, no. It's $20 an hour. That's how much I'm going to care. It's $20 an hour. So we had fun. Noelle said we did some dances. I think the difference for me, my hearing is not as good as Noelle's. When the machines were running, I couldn't hear. People would talk to me and I just like, ain't happening. So I found it pretty isolating with the machines running. So it was just really like, in some ways, 8 or 9 hours of meditation per night, where it was just me and my thoughts. And that wasn't bad, because I redesigned the piling station itself. Kind of took a look at it.
I want to engineer the shit out of that whole thing.
Oh, I did. So I redid like their manufacturing workforce and the machines itself, but I didn't find it to be like particularly sociable. Like even during like pass off, like the end of shift, like we wanted to get the heck out. The people coming in just wanted to be left alone, and the machines are pretty much always running. So for me, it was always a noisy environment. So the socialization aspect at work was minimal. Outside of work, we were on night shift, so like we're not all getting together at like 2 in the morning on our day off to go to the bar or anything like that. If you're thinking about working the sugar beet harvest, here's some things we think you should consider and think about before you do. Number 1, do the research. The job, the location, and the employer. We talked to people that worked for different sugar beet harvesting companies that had worked in North Dakota and Michigan, and there were different experiences from different companies. We think we did really well with American Sugars. It was a very professional environment. There were safety concerns at one point. They were all over it, to give them credit. I mean, things happened very quickly when we expressed concern about a situation. So I felt pretty safe working for them. We've heard from people that worked at different organizations, they didn't quite feel as safe. So do your research, Indeed or wherever you're looking at like reviews for companies, see what the reviews from employees or temps like us say before you jump on the bandwagon. Number 2, set a realistic budget. How much are you going to spend in gas? How much are you going to spend in food? And make sure your numbers are realistic. We had done a budget before we went that covered the cost of fuel for us to get from Alaska to North Dakota and North Dakota back. So we had a rough idea of what we were looking at. And I think most of the people that we met that were working the sugar beet harvest, they had a pretty good idea of their expenses as well. Pack the appropriate gear. We came prepared. When we drove into town our first day, I was in shorts and flip-flops and a t-shirt. And when we left town at the end of this experience, I was in long pants, long socks, shoes, shirt, jacket.
Beanie.
So in the span of a month, the temperature we really went from summer into fall. So we experienced rain, snow, sleet, wind, heat. So it's the whole gamut. So be prepared with your own clothes. We hope our financial breakdown, kind of experience breakdown, has been beneficial to you as we shared like all of our numbers.
Too many numbers.
It's a lot of numbers.
Yeah. Anyways, hopefully you were able to gain some insight about what it might cost you to get to the sugar beet harvest and back, and whether it'd be worth it for you.
For us, I think it's going to come down to this year if we can line up something else. Just the run out to North Dakota from us, from Portland and back, it's expensive. So if we can find something else to augment
Along the way. Either way.
And that's what we did see from other work campers. There are some that they're working, I would call it a circuit.
Yeah.
And they have like an annual circuit that they're working around the country to different jobs.
It's pretty wise.
Yeah.
A lot of people were leaving the beet harvest and going to work in pumpkin. Well, not really pumpkin farms, but farms that, because we're committed through the whole month of October. But people were going to farms that were like a combo of a pumpkin gig and a Christmas tree gig. So a lot of people were going in straight to those farms to work the Christmas tree harvest. I don't think they cut the trees. I think they just go to the places and sell them. But I don't know.
I guess that'll be something we have to figure out for ourselves.
Are we going to get real jobs, or are we going to try to do the bee harvest again? We are signed up for the bee harvest.
We have signed up?
have plans to be there.
Yes.
It just depends on what else we can line up along with it.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for following along. If you give us a thumbs up, that'd be great. If you forward the video to someone else, that would be great too. If you have any questions, comments, leave them below.
And don't forget to subscribe.
All right. See you
Take
next
care.
time. We are back in Garibaldi, Oregon, and we are going to go clamming. This is going to be our first time to ever try clamming at night. Slightly more complicated, but yeah, method number 2.
She washed my shoes again.
She did.
Oh my god. Sorry, I just noticed. Okay, yeah, so I can't focus. I just saw my shoes out here drying on the deck. We're staying in an Airbnb in Goa, India. Completely unrelated. Okay,
Go ahead.
you can
Go
just cut it. But anyways, there's a housekeeper who comes every day. That's excessive, but she keeps on washing my sandals. I like it, but it's also very, very humbling. So, okay, go ahead. Talk about cost.